What's up everyone? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're doing something a little different. I want to settle a debate that's been bouncing around in my head for weeks now. Which is the better space adventure game? Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy or Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order? Now, I know what some of you are thinking. These games are completely different. Why are you even comparing them? And yeah, on the surface, you're right. One's a third-person shooter with squad commands, the other's a Souls-like action game with lightsaber combat. But here's the thing. They're both story-driven, single-player space adventures from major franchises that launched around the same era. They both had something to prove, and they both approached the challenge in wildly different ways. I've spent the last couple weeks replaying both of these games back to back, and I've got opinions, strong opinions. So today we're breaking down everything: story, gameplay, characters, world building, music, the whole package. We're going to figure out which one's worth your time in 2026 and which one holds up better years after release. And look, I'm going to be real with you. I went into this thinking I knew which one I'd pick. By the end, I was way more conflicted than I expected. So let's get into it and see where we land. Let's kick things off with story, because both of these games live or die on their narratives. Jedi Fallen Order follows Cal Kestis, a Jedi Padawan who survived Order 66 and is hiding out as a scrapper. The Empire discovers him, and suddenly he's on the run, trying to rebuild the Jedi Order while being hunted by the Inquisitors. It's a classic Star Wars story, a young hero discovering their power, facing their trauma, fighting the Empire. You know the beats. Guardians is about a broke group of misfits who accidentally unleash a cosmic threat and have to save the galaxy while basically arguing the entire time. It's messier, more personal, and way more about the relationships between the characters than the actual plot. Here's where they differ fundamentally. Fallen Order is Cal's story. Everyone else is supporting cast. You're following one guy's journey from broken Padawan to confident Jedi. It's focused, it's clean, it hits all the right emotional notes. When Cal confronts his cast on Braca, when he faces his old master, when he makes that final choice at the end, these moments land because the game has spent hours building to them. Guardians is an ensemble piece. Yeah, you play as Star-Lord, but this is really about 5 people learning to work together. Every Guardian gets a full arc. The game doesn't just tell you they're a family, it shows you the messy, complicated process of becoming one. You get chapters dedicated to each character's baggage, and by the end, you genuinely care about all of them. The pacing is different too. Fallen Order has that Metroidvania structure where you're constantly backtracking to areas with new abilities. The story sometimes takes a back seat to exploration and combat. Guardians is way more linear. You're always moving forward, and the story never stops pushing you along. Personally, I think Guardians has the stronger narrative. Fallen Order plays it safe with Star Wars lore and familiar story beats. Guardians takes risks, gets weird, and isn't afraid to make you uncomfortable. There's a chapter in Guardians that deals with Rocket's creation that's genuinely disturbing. Fallen Order never goes that dark. But Fallen Order has the more satisfying character arc for its protagonist. Cal's journey from traumatized survivor to confident Jedi is textbook hero's journey stuff, and it works. Peter Quill doesn't change as dramatically. He's still kind of a screw-up by the end, just one with better friends. Alright, gameplay. This is where these games are completely different beasts. Fallen Order is a straight-up action game. You've got a lightsaber, you've got force powers, and you're fighting stormtroopers, bounty hunters, and giant creatures. The combat is deliberately Souls-like. You have to parry, dodge, manage your stamina, learn enemy patterns. It's methodical and punishing. You can't just button mash your way through. When you mess up, you die. When you die, you lose your experience until you find the enemy that killed you. Early game Fallen Order is rough. Cal feels weak, your move list is limited, and you're getting bodied by random scout troopers. But as you unlock abilities, as you get better at reading attacks, as you start stringing together combos and force powers, it feels incredible. Landing a perfect parry on a purge trooper, then force pushing 3 guys off a cliff, then slowing down a blaster bolt and redirecting it back, chef's kiss. The exploration is fantastic too. Every planet is this massive interconnected map with secrets everywhere. You're wall running, rope swinging, using the force to solve environmental puzzles. It's got that classic Metroid design where you see areas you can't reach yet, and then hours later you get the double jump and suddenly the whole map opens up. Guardians is not that. Combat is way more arcadey and chaotic. You're playing as Star-Lord, shooting with your element guns, but the real gameplay is commanding your squad. You're pausing mid-fight to queue up abilities. Gamora, stagger that guy. Rocket, AoE grenade. Drax, grab the big dude. When it clicks, when you're juggling 4 cooldowns while dodging and shooting, it's fun, but it's never as tight or as satisfying as Fallen Order's combat. The big moments in Guardians are the huddles, these mid-battle pep talks where you have to read your team's mood and give the right speech. Nail it, and 80s rock starts blasting while your team wrecks everything. It's goofy and awesome, but it's not skill-based, it's just picking the right dialogue option. Where Guardians wins is variety and spectacle. Every chapter throws you something new at you. One mission, you're sneaking through a fortress. The next, you're flying through space debris. Then you're in a horror-themed level exploring Rocket's past. It's constantly changing things up. Fallen Order has more mechanical depth, but you're doing the same thing on Kashyyyk that you're doing on Zepho, fighting dudes, solving Tomb Raider puzzles, opening shortcuts. Here's my take. If you want challenging, skill-based combat that respects your time investment, Fallen Order wins easily. The lightsaber combat is some of the best melee action I've played. But if you want variety and spectacle and you don't mind simpler mechanics, Guardians keeps things fresh. Also, Fallen Order has boss fights, like actual challenging boss battles against the Inquisitors and other big threats. Guardians has giant monsters you shoot while your team does stuff. The bosses in Guardians are kind of forgettable, not gonna lie. Let's talk worlds, because these games take very different approaches to their universes. Fallen Order is classic Star Wars. You're visiting iconic planets like Kashyyyk and Dathomir, plus new places like Zepho and Bogano. Everything looks and feels like Star Wars. The music swells at the right moments. You see AT-ATs in the background. Stormtroopers patrol the streets. It's comfort food for Star Wars fans. The exploration is top tier. These aren't open worlds, but they're big interconnected maps with tons of secrets. There are chests with cosmetics, echoes that give you lore, optional boss fights, meditation points that serve as checkpoints. You're constantly finding shortcuts that loop back to earlier areas. It feels rewarding to explore. But here's my issue. After 20 hours, the planets start blending together. Zepho, Kashyyyk, Ilum, they're all just ancient tombs with wall-running sections and rope puzzles. The set dressing changes, but the structure is identical. By your third trip back to Zepho, you're kinda over it. Guardians is way more varied. Every location looks completely different. You've got this gorgeous crystalline church, a gross organic alien planet, a neon-soaked space casino, a creepy research facility. The art direction is incredible. It's colorful and vibrant and weird. It feels like a comic book come to life. The downside is it's linear. You're not exploring these places, you're moving through them. There's some light backtracking for collectibles, but mostly you're on a set path. You find crafting materials and costume pieces, but there's no real incentive to look around beyond completion's sake. Fallen Order respects classic Star Wars fans with deep lore and familiar aesthetics. Guardians creates its own identity and isn't afraid to get weird with it. Neither approach is better, it's just preference. One thing Fallen Order does better, the map system is actually useful. You can see where you haven't explored, where chests are, how areas connect. Guardian's map is basically useless because the game is so linear you don't need it. Let's talk bang for your buck, because both these games can be grabbed for cheap nowadays. Fallen Order is probably 20 to 25 hours if you explore everything. There's New Game Plus on higher difficulties. You can go back and hunt for collectibles you missed. The combat is skill-based enough that replaying on higher difficulties feels different. Some people have done multiple playthroughs, but once you've beaten it, once you've explored everything, there's not a ton of reason to go back unless you just really love the combat. Guardians is 15 to 20 hours, and it's pretty much one and done. The choices you make create some minor variations, but not enough to justify a full replay. Once you've seen the story, you've seen it. Combat doesn't have enough depth to carry a second playthrough on its own. Right now, you can get both games for like $20 or less on sale. At that price, both are absolute steals. If you're paying full price somehow, I'd probably lean Fallen Order just because it's got more content and replayability. Neither game has any microtransactions, DLC, or live service nonsense. They're complete experiences. That's increasingly rare and worth celebrating. All right, a moment of truth. Which game is better? Here's what I've realized. They're both excellent at different things, and what you prefer depends entirely on what kind of player you are. Choose Jedi Fallen Order if you want challenging, skill-based combat that makes you feel like a badass Jedi. If you love exploration and Metroidvania design. If you're a Star Wars fan who wants to feel immersed in that universe. If you want a focused hero's journey about overcoming trauma. Choose Guardians of the Galaxy if you want a character-driven ensemble story with genuine heart, if you value spectacle and variety over mechanical depth, if you want to laugh while saving the galaxy, if 80s music is your jam, if you prefer linear, tightly paced narratives. Gun to my head, which one do I think is better? I'm giving it to Guardians by a hair, and I say that as someone who went into this thinking Fallen Order would stomp, but Guardians surprised me with how much emotional weight it carries, how much I cared about these characters, and how well it balances humor with genuine pathos. Fallen Order is the safer, more polished game. It knows exactly what it wants to be and executes flawlessly. Guardians is messier and weirder, but it takes risks that pay off. But honestly, play both. They're different enough that you can enjoy them for different reasons. You're not choosing between two similar games, you're choosing between two different flavors of space adventure. Let me know in the comments which one you prefer and why. Am I crazy for picking Guardians? Let's argue about it. Hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and I'll catch you in the next one. May the Force be with you, or whatever Star-Lord would say. Probably something about Kevin Bacon.